So each group has 30 minutes, and we will be sticking to that 30 minutes. And as agreed with the groups last week, the presentations in favour of change will go first. And I'm going to do the minimum of introductions because they are going to work it out themselves after that. So on behalf of the Gay and Lesbian Equality Network, we have Tiernan Brady and Muriel Walls. On behalf of Irish Council of Civil Liberties, Stephen O'Hare. And on behalf of Marriage Equality, Moneen Griffith, Grania Healy, Conor Prendergast, and Claire O'Connell. Your time starts now.
I'm scared you're eating up my time. Good afternoon. My name is Tiernan Brady, and I'm from GLEN, the Gay and Lesbian Equality Network, and I'm joined by Muriel from GLEN, Stephen from the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, Moneen and Grania from Marriage Equality, and Conor and Claire, who have been raised by same-sex parents. And we're here today to put the case to you that you would recommend equal access to civil marriage for same-sex couples in the Constitution. And we're just a handful of people representing hundreds of thousands of lesbian and gay people and their friends and families who are following the developments here this weekend with a great sense of anticipation. So I suppose there's no pressure on us in that regard. But the last 20 years is a good news story for lesbian and gay people in Ireland. This today is a culmination of a great Irish success story. We've seen phenomenal progress in Ireland. It's less than 20 years ago that we had decriminalisation, and that might seem hard to believe for a lot of people. And from there we moved to strong equality legislation that protected all citizens in Ireland, and that moved on to the Civil Partnership Act, which meant for the first time lesbian and gay couples' relationships had any recognition in law. So in a relatively short space of time, we have moved from being a very unwelcoming place for lesbian and gay people to being one of the best places in the world for lesbian and gay people. And in relation to marriage, over the last 10 years, there has been an awful lot of debate and analysis and reports, whether that's at the Oireachtas level or whether it's at local level through media, national and local. And over all of that time, support for equal access to civil marriage has grown consistently, both with the public, as we see from the polls, and also across the political spectrum, with no political party opposing it now, and every political party, bar one, actively having a policy promoting it. In 2010, the Civil Partnership Act came in, and that was supported again by every single political party in Leinster House, and that's really important for the message that that sends to lesbian and gay people and families, lesbian and gay-headed families. And what this sought to provide was to make a model of legal recognition that was as marriage-like as possible, as close as they could get within the frames, the limits that they seen that were there in the Constitution as it is framed now. And that was stressed by a lot of the lawmakers at the time, that this would have to be addressed by the Constitution, which is why we're here today, to take that next step. In the last 2 years, civil partnership has been a phenomenal success. Thousands of lesbian and gay people surrounded by their family and their friends in every single county in Ireland, covered by almost every single local newspaper in Ireland, have celebrated their civil partnerships, and they've been wonderful events, creating wonderful visibility. So the lives of lesbian and gay people over the past 20 years have been greatly enhanced, and our status has been greatly enhanced. And civil partnership has been a major advance, but however, it falls short of full constitutional equality. And that's what's critical for that equal status and standing and dignity for all lesbian and gay people, for all lesbian and gay couples, and for all children being raised by lesbian and gay-headed families. So moving to civil marriage now isn't a gigantic leap in the dark. Rather, it's the next step, building on an incredible Irish success story of 20 years of progress. And in a democratic republic, where it's based on equal citizenship, civil marriage should be open to all citizens, including lesbians and gay men. And today you have a wonderful opportunity to continue this remarkable Irish story of progress. I wish you well in your deliberations.
afternoon, everyone here and those watching on video link. My name is Muriel Walls. I'm on the board of GLEN. I'm also a practicing solicitor who has specialised in family law for over 30 years. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I'm civilly partnered to Rosemary in May of 2011, and I'm going to deal with the children's issues. Today, there are gay and lesbian families all over Ireland rearing children. There are gay and lesbian parents. There are many couples where one has adopted, as they can't adopt jointly. There are many couples who foster children for the HSE, and they are considered good and effective parents. This is a reality. The numbers are only going to increase in the future. 30 years ago, the number of children born out of wedlock was small, and to our shame, we stigmatised and discriminated them. In the last census, almost 1/3 of children were born to families where the parents were not married to each other. The law cannot prevent people from having children, and 21st century Ireland will have many children born to diverse family formations. Now, some people will say that the best family is a child with their married mother and father. And of course these families are good, and they're likely to be the majority. But if you say these families are the best, what impact does that have on children who are not born into that family type? If we look at this issue through the eyes of the child, such discrimination is intolerable. If we visited a playground today and we saw 10 children, it's likely that 6 would have parents who are married to each other, 3 would have parents who are not married to each other, and 1 might have lesbian parents. Why would we treat these children differently? Why would we not give them all a legal relationship with their parents? Last November, in the children's referendum, we voted to protect all children. The 2010 Civil Partnership Act did not deal with the legal parental relationship between a child and the non-biological parent, and all the benefits and responsibilities that flow from that relationship. The programme for government, however, has made a commitment to modernise family law. Minister Shatter has said that he is acutely aware of the need to secure equal citizenship for lesbian and gay parents and the best interests of children. This builds on the work already done by the Colley Group on domestic partnerships and the Law Reform Commission's report on the legal aspects of family relationships. The Minister is presently preparing a Family Relationships and Children Bill. But while legislation will deal with many of the practicalities, it is the Constitution that is the fundamental law of our state. Gay and lesbian parents and their children need the same constitutional protection, status and standing, and to be part of a constitutionally recognised family based on marriage. Now, only the people can change the Constitution, and it has been a remarkable journey to date. Great leadership has been shown, so please do not stop. Let us keep up with the trend and provide equality for all children now. So my request to you is to allow people to decide this fundamental issue at a referendum and recommend the change that should be made and that children and their families need. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Muriel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen O'Hare. The Irish Council for Civil Liberties is Ireland's independent human rights watchdog, which has been working for more than 3 decades to secure the full enjoyment of human rights for everyone, including equality for same-sex couples. We are very grateful for this invitation to speak with you today. In our submission, the ICCL recommends that there should exist legal and constitutional certainty on the provision for marriage for same-sex couples. The issue before us is primarily one of rights. The right of same-sex couples and their families to dignity, the right to inclusion, and the right to constitutional protection. The unaltered right of religious freedom, and above all, the right of equality and equal treatment before the law. This morning we heard that the Irish courts have tended to interpret this clause in relation to marriage as exclusively between a woman and a man. If this interpretation is the only allowable position under the Constitution, then we must admit of two very particular consequences. First, such a provision is biased against the very people it was drafted to protect, families. Second, the state is currently permitted to discriminate in a legal and in an official capacity, both through the institutions of the state and in the provision of goods and services in relation to marriage based purely on sexual orientation. What we choose to tolerate in relation to marriage, we prohibit in relation to other aspects of our law. It is currently unlawful to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation in relation to employment or in relation to the provision of goods and services. Thankfully, it is socially unacceptable to do so, too. You may hear a suggestion that to allow marriage for same-sex couples, but to prohibit marriage, to allow marriage for opposite-sex couples, but prohibit marriage for same-sex couples, is to treat a different situation differently, which is a universally recognized human rights standard. Acceptable discrimination, as it were. Let us consider this for a moment. Prior to the late 1960s, a number of US states had in place a legal ban on interracial marriage. In 1967, Richard and Mildred Loving, that was her name, took a case all the way to the Supreme Court because the state of Virginia had imprisoned them for 1 year for marrying in contravention of that ban. The Supreme Court overturned the law, despite some very stiff opposition from a number of states who wished to maintain a certain order. What was really at issue in that case was not just race or even sexuality, but the principle of equal treatment before the law. For Richard and Mildred Loving, their right to equal marriage was realised. In much the same way, if we arbitrarily deny same-sex couples the equivalent legal and constitutional recognition of their relationship that we happily and routinely afford to opposite-sex couples, we are not treating different situations differently. We are in fact treating the same situation in a different way. That, by all given international human rights standards, is discrimination. And to suggest otherwise is a bit misleading. So what of current international human rights law? Recent trends indicate the direction in which this particular right is travelling. For example, in a very recent European Court of Human Rights case, 2 Austrian men who wished to marry in a same-sex relationship were denied that opportunity under Austrian national law. What the court decided in this case is very interesting. First, the court recognised that the applicants did indeed constitute a family under the European Convention on Human Rights, under its terms. But the court also found that the right to marry guaranteed under Article 12 of the Convention may no longer be limited to marriage between 2 persons of the opposite sex. The court noted that at present it is best left to states to determine whether and how they would make such provision. Recent international developments demonstrate an emerging trend towards the permission of full marriage rights for same-sex couples. It is becoming increasingly difficult to leave these shores in any direction and not to cross a jurisdiction where full marriage rights have been secured or will shortly be realised. It is also worth reflecting at the moment on the question of religious freedom. The right to freedom of religion is a human right, protected under the Constitution and the European Convention on Human Rights. The ICCL takes very seriously the state's obligation to protect that right. However, there are no circumstances in which religious organisations or their representatives could be compelled to marry a same-sex couple contrary to their own ethos. Religious solemnisation of marriage is a matter for religious organisations alone. Civil marriage, which we are discussing today, is a matter for the state and its citizens. The ICCL believes that there is an urgent need to remove the stigmatising, inequitable, unnecessary and arbitrary impediment to marriage equality and to guarantee same-sex couples and their families equal protection under the Constitution. And this is why we are asking you today to support the provision for equal access to marriage for same-sex couples in the Constitution. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melinia Griffith and I'm Director of Marriage Equality. Marriage is about love, commitment, and caring for your loved ones. It matters to same-sex couples in the same way as it does to heterosexual couples. Lesbian and gay couples don't want to change that. They simply want access to it. Marriage carries with it legal, constitutional, and social status above any other kind of relationship recognition. And it is precisely because same-sex couples value marriage that we are fighting for it. If you believe marriage is good for people, good for families, and good for society, and worth fighting for, then surely any couple who want to take that next step, make a lifetime commitment to each other, and add their names to everything marriage means should be welcomed with open arms. Our former president, Mary McAleese, said whilst expressing her support for marriage equality for lesbian and gay couples, and I quote, "I'm just thrilled anyone wants to get married." But let me be clear. Providing for same-sex marriage is about allowing committed, loving same-sex couples equal access to civil marriage. That's getting married in a registry office. It's not about getting married in a church. Marriage itself predates the religious sacrament, and it's been around for millennia. Providing marriage equality is not about forcing churches to marry same-sex couples if they don't want to. In the same way that after the introduction of divorced people, the free profession and practice of religion is afforded very strong protection under Article 44 of the Irish Constitution, as it should be. And I would therefore ask you to keep this church and state divide clear in your minds today, as you consider whether to recommend to government to provide for equality for lesbian and gay couples. Ireland is ready for marriage equality. Current polling shows us that 74% of Irish people support its introduction. 3/4 of the population is a solid majority. People across Ireland and across the political spectrum are rethinking their position, evolving, as US President Barack Obama described his journey towards support for marriage equality. 84% of Irish people believe that everyone in Ireland should receive equal treatment from the state, regardless of sexuality. 72% of people believe that denying civil marriage to same-sex couples is a form of discrimination. Personal freedom, including the right to marry, is a foundation of our democracy, something to be protected, unless, of course, it harms others. Gay and lesbian people marrying the person they love will not harm others. If we really believe gay and lesbian people are equal, then we must allow committed same-sex couples to marry. This goes to the very heart of acceptance that it's okay to be lesbian or gay. The time is now to provide for equality for lesbian and gay couples. As members of the Constitutional Convention, you have the power to let the people of Ireland change our country for the better. I would therefore ask you to help Ireland take this next step as a modern and progressive democratic society. Let the people of Ireland decide whether to join the 11 countries, including Spain and Canada, and the 9 US states, soon to be joined by France, New Zealand, and the UK, which already allow loving, committed lesbian and gay couples to marry. And please recommend to government to provide for equal access to civil marriage for same-sex couples in the Constitution. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gráinne Healy and I'm chairwoman of Marriage Equality. Civil partnership is not enough because it's not the same as civil marriage. It's a separate institution which provides unequal relationship status and is only available to same-sex couples. Our constitution is silent on whether marriage is between a man and a woman. There have been many changes to Irish society and the Irish constitution since 1937. These changes continue to reflect a changing Ireland. They include amendments such as the recent constitutional change for greater children's rights and the referendum which allowed for divorce. Allowing same-sex couples access to civil marriage is one other proposed change, which will ensure that the Constitution continues to reflect the reality of modern Ireland. Only the family based on marriage is recognised and protected by our Constitution, and that's a key reason why lesbian and gay-headed families want access to civil marriage. As equal citizens of this state, we want an equal right to protect our families. Civil partnership isn't enough because there are over 160 differences between civil marriage and civil partnership. Some differences include that same-sex couples' homes are not defined as family homes. Instead, our homes are given the status of a shared home. Civil partners cannot apply to jointly adopt, even when it is the biological child of one of the partners whom they are raising together. In the event of a relationship breakup in a civil partnership, there is no legal requirement for a court to take into account the needs of dependent children. Discrimination against children based on their parents' sexuality is a day-to-day reality for hundreds of children in Ireland today. For those of us who really care for the welfare of all children, we are asking you to vote yes for same-sex marriage rights for us and for our children. Let's focus in specifically on welfare and the concerns that are raised about children. Marriage is, of course, not just about children. Marriage certificates are not issued in Ireland conditional upon couples having children. Many couples do not have children. It doesn't make their marriages less valid. Some same-sex couples may never have children, some do. What they want is the option to be married. The meaning of the family has changed in Ireland over time. Today's reality is that many of us belong to diverse families. Families are places of support, love and commitment, and include spaces where children are reared. Allowing lesbian and gay people marry strengthens our families. It does not weaken marriage, but strengthens it. We have nothing to fear from children growing up with lesbian and gay parents. 30 years of scientific research is showing that children growing up with lesbian and gay parents turn out just fine, and has found no significant developmental differences between them and children with heterosexual parents in their intelligence, their psychological adjustment, their social adjustment, their popularity with their friends, their development of social sex role identity, or in their development of sexual orientation. Professor Sheila Green, while at the Children's Research Institute at Trinity College in Dublin, examined all the peer-reviewed research in relation to outcomes for children of same-sex couples and concluded that children in same-sex families reach their developmental milestones and they do just as well as children raised by opposite-sex couples. Children in same-sex families experience hardship and social exclusion because of the lack of legal recognition and protections afforded their families. The lack of marriage access for their parents makes these children and their families vulnerable, not the sexuality of their parents. You'll hear people proposing that our children are not safe or adequately loved in our families. It's simply not true. What about the children, they ask? We also asked this question, but we asked the children themselves. And now I want you to hear from adult children, Conor Prendergast and Claire O'Connell, who have been raised in same-sex-headed families, and they will speak to you directly about why marriage matters to them.
Hi everyone, my name's Conor Prendergast, and I'd like to talk to you briefly about my family. So there's me, my brother Dara, and my parents Anne and Bernadette. My brother and I were born in London. In 1995, our family moved to Ireland, where we lived in County Kildare. We settled in and really made a life here. Both my brother and I have been through primary and secondary school here, and I've gone on to university where I studied an undergraduate degree and master's degree in psychology. Dara has since moved to New Zealand to work and study there, where our remaining grandparents live, along with cousins, aunt and an uncle. We're a family like any other. We love and support each other. What differentiates us, though, is how we are treated by the Irish state. Unlike other families, we don't have the legal protection of being a fully recognised family. What this means in reality is that I only have a legal relationship to my mum who gave birth to me, Anne. My other mum, Bernadette, is a stranger to me in the eyes of the law. When I was little, she couldn't give legal consent to anything on my behalf. Although we were blissfully unaware of it, that left my brother and I in a legal vacuum with less rights and protections than other children. Now, I don't want to face a future where my parents are older, where the caring shoe is on the other foot, and where I'm not recognised as their son, as their legal next of kin. I'm lucky enough now to be engaged myself, which for us is obviously wonderful, but is still a little bittersweet. I've been with my fiancée Alana for about 6 years, but my parents have been together for 32, yet they can't have their love recognised by marriage, but we can. And that's what marriage is for, really. It's about recognizing love. My parents having the opportunity to get married wouldn't devalue my relationship, it would strengthen it. By getting marriage equality discussed on a public, national platform in Ireland, you're going to help to protect and respect families like mine. I thank you for the opportunity to share my story in person. From my parents, my family, my friends, and all of the other lesbian and gay people in Ireland, I'm asking you to recommend to the government to provide for same-sex marriage. So thank you very much.
DEF, good afternoon everyone. My name is Claire O'Connell and I'm 22 years old. I study medicine at Trinity College Dublin and I teach the piano on weekends. I live in Drumcondra in Dublin with my younger sister Dee and our two parents. We go on holidays to the west of Ireland, we cook a roast dinner on Sundays. We're a typical Irish household. In many ways, my family's probably very similar to yours, except for one big difference. My parents are not allowed to be married. My family is not legally recognised for the simple reason that my parents are two women. And people often ask what it's like being raised by two mammies. And I fear my answer often disappoints them because the truth is that my childhood was fairly ordinary. It wasn't very different to that of my friends because growing up, I had what every child needs, loving parents. They were there to bandage my knees when I fell and to wipe my tears when I cried. And people as well often always ask, was I bullied in school because I had two mums? And again, I fear I disappoint them with a rather dull tale of a typical school experience. I was never afraid to tell anyone my mum was gay, and I was never bullied because of it. Was I ever worried about what my friends would think? Actually, most people just thought it was cool that I had two mums. In fact, the running joke among my friends is that my family is the most normal out of anyone's we know. I never saw myself as being different. I looked around at the other students in my school and at the whole host of different family backgrounds from which they came. And the one thing that most of us were fortunate to have in common was parents who loved us and who would do anything for us. Some people may try to paint a picture of the ideal scenario in which a child should be raised with their biological mother and father. But Connor and I, and many other children around Ireland like us, prove that we shouldn't narrow the definition of a family and exclude those that don't fit, and that we should recognise families with same-sex parents for what they are, families. Growing up, I never thought my family was different to anyone else's, but I know now that we are, because we don't have the same legal recognition and protection as others. Marriage equality would mean that my parents, who are in a loving and committed relationship, can get married like anyone else. But most importantly for me, marriage equality would mean that no one could ever tell us that we aren't a family. So for my family and for all others like mine, I would ask you to recommend to government to provide for same-sex couples in the Constitution. Gurv Míle Maith.
GLEN and marriage equality speak every day with the LGBT community in Ireland. The overwhelming majority of that community, our community, support marriage equality, as do 3/4 of the wider public. It is 10 years since Catherine Zappone and Anne-Louise Gilligan were married in Canada and began their challenge for justice and recognition of their marriage here in Ireland. I want you now to take 3 minutes to listen to the video of other lesbian and gay couples speaking about why their love for each other deserves recognition and equal treatment, and why you should vote yes for government to provide for civil marriage rights for same-sex couples. Thank you.
I can't remember what my life was like before Barry. If I didn't have Barry to wake up to in the morning or go to bed with at night, you know, I'd miss that. Like it's
big time, yeah.
Yeah, he's half of me. Do you know that sort of way?
We have a yay day for each other. It's basically like a birthday, except in the middle of the year. I do something nice for him. It doesn't have to cost money, you know.
14 years, you have to keep it fresh.
I came over here from New Zealand in 2006. I joined the rowing club, and that's where I met Sive. She took me out for a row. And from there we kind of became friends, and then a couple of months later we started seeing each other. And now it's been about 5.5 years. She's really caring, so I'm really happy. So lucky to have met her.
She's very funny. She's extremely caring and compassionate. She's very clever and she's very supportive. She's very good looking.
Actually, our humour that brought us together. And if you can laugh on the telephone 3,000 miles away from each other and still laugh when you've put down the telephone, there's a connection there. There's very much a connection there.
My love is more complete since I've met Frida and since we've been together. So love can be magic.
Well, I love Gillian sings in the shower every morning. I want to hear it. Just starts my day out perfectly. It makes me smile, and I love that.
Everything that Laura does, she's really, really passionate about, and I love that.
We have a dog called Frodo. We take him for walks and stuff like that. So yeah, that's our boring, normal life. Yeah.
We would always contact each other during the day to make sure that each other is fine. If you need anything, what can I do for you?
What's for dinner?
What's for dinner?
Gillian's the chef. She does all the cooking. I am supposed to do all the ironing. I'm a little behind at the moment.
This is Maeve.
Important to us because it gives recognition that we're committed to each other and we have a family, and we're really serious about our commitment.
Marriage is important to us because we want to be equal to everybody else.
Our siblings are married, our friends are married, and we don't see why we shouldn't have the same rights as they do.
I feel excluded here in Ireland, and I don't like that. And I want to be included. I am legally married in Canada, and I want to be legally married here in Ireland, and it means the world to me.
We're very proud to be Irish, and we're very proud of our country, and we just want our country to accept us for who we are and be treated the same as everybody else.
It's true, it's honest. That's marriage. Now the law should reflect that here in Ireland as well, and not be blinded by a word, but rather to give the human rights to everyone that deserves them.
No, civil partnership is not enough. We want marriage.
Thank you very much. That was 30 minutes. So bang on time. Thank you very much indeed.